Hey there, all you ghouls and goblins, and welcome back to yet another episode as a Necromancer in our medieval eternal winter. Last episode, we had the wood elf known as Helga join us. She, too, is a Necromancer, and she and I have just been discussing the art of necromancy, since she seems to be a bit of a novice. We're getting along swimmingly, though, and I think that she has a lot of potential, and I think that we have a lot of potential to raise an undead army, the likes of which this planet has never seen before. Ah yes, ambitions, but that's going to be a little ways off. For now, let's just try to get her better acquainted with our merry band of rotting warriors. What better way to understand the complexities of controlling an undead human's brain than to meet a few of them, eh? We also want to help her hone her skills a bit, so we're hunting a giant herd of muskox. As you might have guessed, though, we don't plan on hunting down this herd for food. We're not going to eat them. Well, we are going to consume them, just not in the traditional method, I suppose. After sucking the life out of some wild creatures, we're both feeling much better and much more powerful, ready to really start teetering with necromancy. Now, while those two are bonding and training a bit to hone their skills, we have a wood elf bulk goods trader who has come to, well, you guessed it, do a bit of trading with us. Nothing out of the ordinary, we're always trading with the wood elves off-screen and sometimes on-screen, but this particular trader had a flesh-bound grimoire, some type of mystical book of the dead, eh? Count me in. Described as being a grotesque tomb of stitched human skin adorned with a grinning skull. Oddly enough, its pages were completely empty, and yet I felt a strong connection, almost as if the book were trying to say something. Well, I'm gonna level with you, we're not too sure what we'll be using this for yet, but something tells me it may be useful at a later time. If nothing else, I suppose I could write my life story in it, who knows. A bit of time later, we finished up our research into arcane crafting, which was a prerequisite for magical equipment, which is going to be our next research project. I also noticed that our poor sweet Helga was sleeping on the floor of our dining hall. No, this just will not do. The second greatest necromancer in our city sleeping on the ground? I don't think so. Okay, sure, we only have two of them, but the point still stands. We wasted absolutely no time calling forth our horde of the undead to construct a proper home for her. No more sleeping on the floor for you, pretty lady. You get your own little humble abode in our city of the damned. Since most of our alive folks have specialized skills, we're sticking with the theme of keeping their profession inside their homes, close to their work and efficient. Helga's shall be taxidermy and tailoring, since she just so happens to be one hell of a crafter. Speaking of homes for our living folk, though, Pluto's home has become an uncentered eyesore and needs to be scrapped ASAP. Besides, I think she's far outgrown her humble beginnings in her little cabin in the woods, don't you? We're on the fast track to becoming but the queen of the undead. And where do queens live? Definitely not in some shabby cabin in the woods. No, they live in keeps and castles, so that is exactly what we're going to be building. One that is not only large and well defended by its walls, but also by our minions, but one that is also centered with the rest of the city. A keep that will have some of the finest flooring and furniture that we have at our disposal. We shall spare no expense. One of the most valuable resources in this world, given that it's always a cold, hellish winter is wood, and we just so happen to purchase a lot of it from the bulk goods trader earlier. We plan on using it all inside of Pluto's keep today. To start things off, we have her very own grand dining hall and kitchen area where she and her guest may feast. Unlike the other dining hall in the city, this one is not open to the public, but only for Pluto herself as well as anyone she decides to invite in, such as possible allies, maybe the leaders of some of the elven houses if we play our cards right. Next on the agenda here in the western wing is going to be her very own bedroom. Of course, nothing too fancy here, just a nice human leather bed, as well as some other moderate furnishings and a few exotic winter plants. While the eastern wing, on the other hand, shall be her very own personal library and study, a safe place to create, write, and also store plenty of tomes and books and scrolls, as well as conducting her own personal research projects. Literacy is a form of magic itself, am I right? All in all, I think the keep turned out pretty good. Finally, a proper home worthy of our Necromancer goddess in the making. We can always upgrade it later on as well with better royal furnishings and what have you when we have the time to do so, and also the means. I definitely think this is an adequate start though, and thanks to our friend the Ducky Dude 1, this keep shall be known as the Shivering Star Keep, with the name being something of an opposite to the Eternal Flames naming system, and also because this keep is going to be our last stand in the city, which it definitely is. If shit really hits the fan, I'll be pulling all of our people into here with our horde to defend ourselves. Speaking of which, when they're not busy constructing or hauling or doing other chores around the city, I'm going to have 2 undead posted at the front of the keep at all times. Eventually, once we have a true army raised, I'm going to start making these posts all throughout the city's walls as well to ensure that we are truly defended 24/7. Once the keep was completed, we also completed our research into magical equipment, now allowing us to create Dragon Slayer armor, which is the armor that I was going for with this research. The only problem is we still have to have an arcane forge to make it, so we have a little bit more researching to do. In the meantime, though, I think it's about damn time for some conquest. I'm sick of building a city and not killing anyone. My god, we haven't ripped a soul out of the Reaper's hands to fight in our army in too damn long. Besides, this is the perfect opportunity for Helga to prove herself and to test her own abilities. Word has it there just so happens to be an Undead cultist hideout sitting right between the Undead village and the Wood Elf settlement. Between all these places, ourselves and the newly formed Eternal Flame stronghold on the coast, it's getting a little bit too crowded around here. I say we take them out. We send Pluto, Moin Cow, and a few others to dispatch of these impids and hopefully add them onto our army of the undead. And as we were traveling, we also finished up our research into arcane facilities, now allowing us to build our very own arcane forge, but that'll be after we dispatch of these filthy cultists. It would seem they've built their hideout in a small mountain. It was actually much larger than we anticipated. Even so, we have 2 undead powerful magic wielders, an undead warrior, and 2 undead beasts. I think we should do just fine. Plus, unlike most elves, Helga here isn't opposed to using a pistol to do her dirty work. That's right. To hell with tradition. Knock knock, anybody home? Well, yes indeed, there is someone home, an impid lady going by the name of Az. Although that hardly mattered when we slammed an axe between her eyes. The first of many cultists who will be feeling our wrath. But I feel like this is probably a good time for Helga to start learning the ropes a bit. her first undead warrior. I remember my first time. Oh my, and she's even managed to keep the corpse's flesh on its bones after resurrection. Pluto only recently learned this, if I remember correctly. Helga is a damn natural. Well, with Helga's first minion in hand, we would continue exploring as well as clearing out this cultist hideout, encountering a few more of them along the way. Most were overwhelmed by our numbers fairly quickly, but one in particular here had some interesting abilities. Our animals and warriors would rush them and put them onto the ground. It would seem that this person appears to be a gladiator, a special fighter type. Well, we would end up recruiting them, but we couldn't risk them turning against us again with skills like these, so instead we shot them in the head and resurrected them as our own undead fighter, of course. Unfortunately, this does mean that her fighting capabilities will be limited a bit, just as they are with Mortenkow's magic, for example, but it's much safer for us this way. For now. Regardless though, we would continue clearing out the rest of the hideout, finding their hiding spots and some type of worship room, along with the kitchen and bedrooms and everything that you would expect to find in some place like this, I suppose. Butchering and dismembering everyone that we came across. And with that, we had finally cleared out the entire hideout, murdering every single impid within. You know what's next. If you guessed resurrecting all of the corpses that we created to fight in the undead horde, well, then you are correct, sir and/or madam. One little issue that we face, though, Helga is still a novice at necromancy and thus could only raise up to 5 undead at one time. But we'll pack up the other corpses and bring them back home to the city. Before we do that, though, we're going to begin looting this shithole. First, starting with this beautiful, dangerous-looking book, which appears to contain slices of human meat, as well as a scroll about some type of weaponry. We might find that useful in our smithing. We also found an ancient artifact shelf. I'm sure that the queen would love this in her new keep. Other items we ended up finding were different types of metals and wine and food, a legendary scroll about pole arms, some chalices and golden plates, and yada yada yada. Some cool stuff, but nothing too important. Something interesting we did find, though, was a chest mimic, a devilish little creature that disguises itself as a place to store items. Holy shit, it swallowed Helga! Oh, you loose-lipped son of a bitch. Our undead horde would beat this mimic down to its last breath. Literally, as we killed it, freeing Helga, thank God. Well, that really sucked ass, as all she got to show for the experience was a sapphire necklace. Better than nothing, I guess. Let's go home. Returning home some odd days later and immediately going to our warehouse to unload all the things that we brought back, including some impid corpses, as previously mentioned, as well as some other items that we had yet to create ourselves, like a large stone oven. This will really help us with fixing meals for everyone. I'm sure some of these undead cultists will be able to make a hell of a winter bloom stew now. We would also provide the Queen Pluto with her very own artifact shelf that we brought back, and I think she was pretty darn tickled with it. She was very pleased with Helga's mission, I know that for an absolute fact. So much, in fact, that maybe she was even a bit infatuated with Pluto now, as the two of them have become lovers. Oh my! And yes, you heard me correctly, I did say that Helga was infatuated with Pluto first, and that's because it appears that Helga has made the first move. Something about complimenting her makeup, which I find of particular interest because given the lack of resources and the time period, it's probably a combination of lead or some other poisonous metal and donkey dung. But I digress. It would seem the fastest way to the Queen's shriveled, decrepit heart is by murdering an entire cult and commandeering ancient artifacts for her. If it works, it works. This begs the question, what's better than 2 necromancers? 2 necromancers with the power of love. Too cheesy? My bad. However, let us celebrate the occasion of their new relationship by adding on to our forces with the bodies of the remaining cultists that we had brought back. I must tell you, my friends, our power grows stronger with every passing day, and as does the Horde. Soon, we'll have an army large enough to take out the Eternal Flame stronghold nearby, and then after that, we'll be able to start conquering their cities and towns. Try as they might, they don't seem to have any useful weapons in the battle against the undead. Really, their only way of stopping us is by killing Helga or Pluto, but we don't plan on letting them get close enough to ever do anything like that. As we continue expanding our knowledge, our city, our army, and everything in between, we ended up finishing the research into the Arcane Forge. I think earlier I might have mentioned that we finished this with Arcane Facilities, a little bit of a whoopsie-daisy, but now we can actually make the forge. And so, thus we would end up creating our very first Arcane Forge. Now, initially I had this in the smith shop as it made the most sense, but I would quickly end up moving it to the Shivering Star Keep. The reason for this is because I quickly realized that we would have to imbue and utilize our mana into any item that we made at the forge, which meant that it had to be Pluto or Helga, as our undead magic wielders had very limited mana capacity. And since Helga here is the only one with a good crafting skill, that means she's the only one that can create our Dragon Slayer armor that we've been working on. That also means that it's going to take several days and several attempts to finish it, which is quite a shame because it looks like we are about to be under siege by the Eternal Flame. Oh, great. Yet another attack form from their new stronghold, no doubt, composed of their finest knights, marksmen, fire mages, dire wolves, and of course, they're trolls. It seems that they've decided to skip the siege altogether and come in straight for the attack. Perhaps they weren't accounting for the fact that we built a keep and we would all rush there to safety so that they couldn't hit us with their boulders and cannons. Well, either way, it looks like we're going to be getting to the fun part right from the get-go. They came in bumbling and fumbling with their wolves and fireballs at Az, who was sent out first as a distraction while the other forces mustered up. And all of a sudden, our wave of corpses would hit their knights front and center. This would cause irreparable friendly fire from their own fire mages. Oh my, what a dastardly little plan we've concocted. And while they were all distracted fighting the horde, Viktorov and Moinkau would ignite them with flames and the spirits of the damned. Yet another failed assault, and as they would flee, our demons would rip many of them apart. But at the end of the day, some of them would escape to live to tell the tale. Yes, run, you pathetic little animals. Tell your queen what happened here today. Tell her that soon killing off her cannon fodder will no longer satisfy my appetite. Tell her that we'll be coming for her and that sister of hers. Now, you know the drill by this point. Most of them got stripped and others got clipped, if you know what I'm saying. Some of them ended up getting both. And once the sun had set, we had a gigantic pile of corpses sitting at Pluto and Helga's feet. Not to point out the obvious, but I am the narrator. Obviously, we're going to be adding every single one of these corpses onto our horde. Welcome to our babbling Ghoul Battalion, all you lads and ladies, and of course welcome back to some of you familiar faces who died during battle for a second, third, or maybe even fourth time. I find this a good reason to point out this is why the Flame can't beat us. They're not able to keep our undead warriors down, at least not for very long, and after each battle we grow stronger by reanimating their dead. It's a win-win for us and a lose-lose for them. Speaking of which, as we were cleaning up after the battle, I noticed that they dropped many riches like a flaming wand, a golden skull, and some type of necromancy scroll. This scroll was like none other that we had seen before, providing its user with the knowledge of the Lich form. This spell is dark magic. Darker than what we have even began to scratch the surface of, and I think that says a lot about it. Any necromancer can learn it, but to use it, it comes at the ultimate cost. Pluto wouldn't just trade her life, but her humanity, or what is left of it after her morality is gone, but it's deeper than that. In her Lich form, she wouldn't eat anymore, she wouldn't sleep, and she wouldn't be able to talk, not in the normal sense. she essentially wouldn't be alive anymore. She would be something entirely different, a being of immeasurable power. Since this transformation is a one-way street, I say no way Jose. Pluto of the past probably would have taken it right away, but Pluto now only recently got a girlfriend she can snuggle up to in bed. I don't think she'd be willing to trade the good parts of humanity, not even for this power now. Unless she had to, of course, and that's why we shall only use it as a last resort measure if Pluto's about to die, Helga's about to die, or if our entire kingdom and everything we've worked for is about to go down in flames. Pun intended. While still on the topic of the flame, we're not quite finished cleaning up their little mess from their siege they had planned, and part of that mess is actually their cannon and trebuchet that they were too cowardly to take with them as they were fleeing, which is good news for us. That means we have a new trebuchet that we can install next to the Shivering Star Keep to attack our enemies from afar, and a cannon that we can put at the city's entrance. I will say cannons aren't exactly our forte, but Osprey, the defector of the flame, is well versed in cannon bombardment and technique. It would seem that yet again we've chosen our allies well. We're also going to be cutting off our growing of fiber corn just for a little bit and dampening it a tad to grow some dyes. The reason for this is that I have a lot of our soldiers wearing the Eternal Flames apparel and armors, as well as anyone else that really we had killed, and I think we are long overdue for a style of our own, serving not only as a symbol of our power, but it'll also keep us from having friendly fire on the battlefield, not that that's that big of an issue for us. Days later, we would finally finish up our Dragon Slayer armor. Helga literally put her blood, sweat, and magical powers into this. Wielding this wonderful armor is going to be none other than Humps, the leader of our forces, and who we hope to be our Death Knight, or most powerful Wraith, or, you know what, I'm not exactly sure what type of title we'll be giving him just yet, but he looks pretty darn good in it, I'd say. Now that we've gotten a lot of our beginner goals accomplished, I think it's about damn time that we sit down and plan out becoming a proper kingdom. I don't want to just be the queen of the necropolis, I want to be the undead queen of the world. Total domination, baby. And so we're going to have to start an actual empire. Of course, we'll be the Rotting Horde, the Undead Kingdom. We're also going to be quite authoritarian as well as expansionist. You can't dominate a world if you don't expand. With an iron fist. Here's the idea. Our allies, the Wood Elves, they are quite useful and versatile, although they are weak. So, we'll be using their men to set up separate villages nearby, and in exchange, of course, we'll be offering them protection and fair wages. Fair wages, I hear you ask? Why would you pay Wood Elves to set up villages for you? Can't you just send undead to do that? Well, yes, but we're not quite at the point where we can expend our undead like that and continue building up an army. We're still increasing our power level, and besides, these villages are not for expansion. They are simply going to be logging camps on the inside of the Wood Elves' sacred forest. Thus why we have to strike a deal. And this way, as the necropolis grows, as well as our empire, we'll be able to sustain all of our burning and fuel needs with the wood that they chop down for us. Eventually, we will turn these into proper towns and cities that are for expansion purposes, but for now they're just simple logging camps. We'll be paying for the workers to equip the workers, and they can also serve as the camp's first line of defense, and if they're attacked, we'll try to get out there as soon as possible. With the 2 logging camps set up, now we just wait for some of that sweet lumber to start pouring in. At first, it won't be much until we upgrade the camps. Better equipment, more elves willing to chop down trees, wagons, you know, that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, back at the necropolis, we finally finished growing all those dyes that we've been working on. Now we can finally give our troops and our people some appropriate attire. A bit cliche, but we've decided to go with black for the shriveled up flesh of our undead, and green for the powers of necromancy, and again for rotting flesh. Lich. I think it's actually quite fitting. Not only a beautiful status symbol, but a message to the rest of the kingdoms and to the world that we are a force to be reckoned with. No longer are we some disheveled, unorganized necromancers raising up bunny corpses to fight for us. We are a true kingdom now. And as such, I'm also going to begin designating some of our horde to go about guarding not only the city entrance, of course, but also the entrance to the keep, as I previously discussed, I think early on in the video, right after we built the keep. It'll be nice to have a set of eyes watching out 24/7. It would also be nice to get some wood from our logging camps, because if not, we're gonna start getting very cold very fast. Ah, there they are. Well, we've built them. Now we only have to wait for them to bring it in, I suppose. Whatever. Anyhow, though, we have accomplished a lot today, and a lot has happened, so I suppose I'll see you next time.